Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we're going to do a Goodwood review. Let's actually get to the first race that we're going to talk about. We're going to go in chronological order, obviously, starting with Tuesday. And we will only look at the races that actually were interesting. There were some races that were pretty boring, or the right horses won, or nothing really caught my eye. So let's start off with a horse that was interesting from the 140. So Lord Ridderford won this for us, at 8-1, winning the race for the last 3 years, or now making it last 3 years. Surely next year that's going to be called the Lord Ridderford Handicap. Great bit of training. He's won, I think they're his last 3 wins now, have all come in the same race. Yes, they have. I'm just looking on my other screen. All his 3 wins, his last 3 wins have come in this race at Goodwood. The horse that I think is interesting from this race and kind of demonstrated that he was better than this was next when he ran a little bit later on in the week, and that's Rarsell. So Rarsell finished 9th here, went off the 100-30 favourite, had previously run a good race at Ascot, went 4th, didn't get the clearance of runs that day, came here, looked like he had a great chance. Now, he ran disappointingly, but if you watch the race and subsequent races, so at the time it wasn't clear why he ran so poorly, but if you watch subsequent races, he was in the wrong part of the track. You needed to be down on the rail, where Lord Ridderford was, particularly on day 1, and Rarsell was kind of stuck out in the middle, or towards the middle, stuck out on the wing, didn't get the race run to suit, and I think the other horse that was out there with him really dropped away. I can't even remember who it was, but Rarsell was just in the wrong place. He suggested that was not his running a few days later when he ran a really good race in the group race behind Highfield Princess, when finishing 3rd in the King George, the Group 2. Now, that day he was actually given a different ride by James Doyle. They dropped him out, they held him out the back, and I think they were running for a place. Highfield Princess was likely to win the race, and then all the others were trying to get 2nd and 3rd. Now, I thought it was a clever ride from James. He waited out the back. But with that in mind, that's got to be what they try next time. But in a handicap, I mean, you don't finish 3rd in a Group 2, even if it's an easy Group 2, and not be able to win a handicap off a similar mark. I'm hoping the handicapper assesses the horse based on his Goodwood 9th, not his Goodwood 3rd. If he leaves him on 101, then I think he'll run a really big race next time out. And where would I go with him? Well, I'd stick to this race that I've suggested. There's a 5 furlong handicap at Ascot next week in the Shargar Cup. So that's where I would be going with him. I'm just going to check to see if we've got the entries for those races. I can't see them yet, and hopefully the horse watchers might decide to run Rarsell in this race at Ascot next week. The prize money's okay, but it's a handicap at Ascot. I think he would take all the beating if he went there, and I'm not sure where else they could go at the moment with him. He does have some form at Ascot, so yeah, I would be keen to run him there. He's never actually won at Ascot, but he did finish a decent 4th 2 runs ago, or 3 runs ago now, when behind the big board Baddery and Vintage Clarets, when he didn't get the clearest of runs. So yeah, that's where I hope they go with Rarsell next, but we'll find out whether he gets an entry in that very shortly. The second race that I want to talk about is the Coral Chesterfield Cup. Our selection here was atrocious. That's not the name of the horse, that's how the horse ran. Our selection was Soto Sizzler. I'd hoped the Moors had planned this race. I think the ground may have gone against him, and I think the fact that he drifted, I think we liked him at 12s, he went off 22-1, he drifted and ran exactly like that. He ran terrible. Now, because he's run terrible, I wonder whether the handicapper might drop him a few pound, and he will need to drop 4 for a race that I really like him for. But I just wonder whether they might get one more run into him and then return to this race. So the race I'm keen on him for is this 1 mile 2 race at Epsom. 1 mile 2 race at Epsom. for horses rated 0 to 95. So he's currently rated 99, which does mean he wouldn't get in this. But if he drops down to 95, I think that might be where they end up with him. So he's finished third in April of this year at Epsom, beaten by Bad Company and Caius Chorister. Scampy was back in fifth that day, who's obviously franked that form. But the year before that, he finished first and second in consecutive races at Epsom. He's also finished second at Epsom. I mean, he's won at Epsom. He's won at Epsom. I mean, why are they not just running him at Epsom? I mean, his form at Epsom, brilliant, isn't it? What's that now? 1-1, 2-2, 1-2-3 at Epsom. I'm hoping that this is the long-term plan for him. It's not until the 1st of October. It's on the final day of, the final meeting at Epsom. But yeah, that's where I'm hoping they might run him, or that's his long-term target, is at Epsom on the 1st of October. The third race that caught my eye was the Group 2, the Nicholson Vintage Stakes, and whilst Hartem won it, and Hartem obviously has run some really good races, his third at Epsom. I tweeted after the race that day, the best horse has finished third. I think he's kind of suggested he was the best horse that day, has come out and done some good stuff since, including finished second to City of Troy last time out, now 2 runs ago, and then won at Goodwood. For me, though, the best horse that day, on Tuesday, finished second. Iberian was dropped out the back by William Buick, and he was very keen on only his second start. I think if he'd had 4 or 5 starts like Hartem had, he would have run down Hartem. Because it was only his second start, I think he just got a little bit lost, about 2 furlongs out, still didn't know what to do, ran on really strongly. If they run again in a month's time and they both ran in the race, Hartem and Iberian, I would be really keen on Iberian here, to be honest. I think he will prove to be the best of this lot in time, and he's one I'm definitely looking out for next time. He could go to France. There's a couple of races in France at Deauville. There's a listed race at Deauville that he could run in, but I will be keeping an eye out for where they do run Iberian next. Next race that caught my eye was the Corals Fillies Handicap, and we was obviously a little bit annoyed in the fact that the horse I really liked for this race didn't run. That horse was Bridestones. I still think she's nicely handicapped wherever she runs. The horse who I thought was the most unlucky here was Baxidar, who first of all raced relatively prominently, was 5th or 6th. Or even closer than that, actually, maybe 4th or 5th. But if you go and watch it after a furlong, pick out all the horses, pick out the front 5, they're all towards the back. Baxidar is the only one who's prominent that actually runs a decent race in the end. I'm just very quickly reading the write-ups for these horses. First was held up towards rear, second off the pace, third held up off the pace, fourth held up off the pace, fifth held up towards rear, sixth tracking leaders, 7th held up towards rear, 8th headway were not clear run, 9th held up off the pace. All those that finished towards the front were off the pace. The only one who wasn't was Baxidar, and I think Baxidar's run a really good race. Also, if you watch the race, travelling really nicely in behind those front few, when Jack Mitchell just allows Choisia to drift across and get in front of Baxidar, and I just think that little check of momentum on Baxidar just caused Baxidar to get off the bridle, and she just was a bit on her heels at that point, whereas all the others were moving forward, and she had to get going again. And I thought she'd run a really good race for 6th, and I think off her current mark of 92, she could definitely win a race. I think I found a race for her. There's this Sky Bet Mile handicap for 3-year-olds at York. This was on the 19th of August last year, so it would be a similar time. If she turned up here, I think she could run a really big race, to be honest. I think her handicap mark, she's not reached her peak yet off 92. If she turns up in this mile handicap, which should certainly suit her, at York, I think she can go really well here, to be honest. And that's where I'm hoping we will see Baxidar. But she's definitely She's definitely well handicapped. She just needs a bit of luck in running. The next horse that I really want to talk about, and I know people might say I'm talking rubbish here, Funny Story. I was really keen on Funny Story for this race, and to be honest, I thought she was given a terrible ride. Rob Hornby. So, the stalls opened, and a couple of them who were quite poorly drawn, I think it was Funny Story and maybe Crazy Luck, decided to come across to the rest of the group. Perfect. Now held up behind the group. Really early, I think it was about 2 furlongs to go, Rob's gone, well, I'm going for it now, and he's moved her out, and he's moved her out, and he's moved her out, and kept going wider and wider and wider until she's right out in the middle, and then didn't pick up as well as, you know, I'm sure Connections had hoped, because she was right out in the middle. I didn't get the ride, considering what we'd seen throughout the rest of the day. You know, after, 7 races, the jockeys should know where to go. And down the middle was not the right place. And yet, Rob should have just sat there and waited for gaps and hoped they came. The way he's given this a ride, she needed to be a stone ahead of her mark, not just a few pounds. She needed to be a stone ahead of her mark to be winning, going in the wrong place of the track. I never understand why jockeys do that. They don't seem to watch the previous races and pick up, okay, that's the slower part of the track, let's not go there, that's where I want to be. They should have just stuck down in behind the group, waited for a gap, pushed her through, and I think she would have won it. But the way she was given the ride, that if you draw her line on a map, for example, she's done like a V, so she started out wide, gone to the inside and moved back out to the middle. It was a terrible ride. Off her handicap mark, I'm hoping she's not moved. Off her handicap mark of 92, she can definitely win a race. And I can't remember if I'd found something for her, so I did. Again, we'll find out whether she's in this very shortly. There's this race, just double checking it is still on. Where is it? 300 plus 300. Class 2, 3-year-old, 6 furlongs, 4:30 next Saturday. If she turned up in that, she would win if she's given a good ride. Yeah, I'd be really, really confident of Funny Story off 92. She is going to win a race. She's better than a 92. She's better than a handicapper. I think she's a listed class. But they might as well win some handicaps with her en route. And, you know, if they run her next week and potentially try and win 37 grand, it was only worth 18 to win at Goodwood. Might as well go and win the 37 grand at Ascot then. But yeah, she's, out of all of those that ran, she's the one I think was the biggest eye catcher and the biggest, the one that really didn't get a good ride at all. The next race that I want to talk about is the conditions race, the Fillies conditions race. And to be honest, this was probably potentially the second worst ride, in my opinion. And it was on Tropical Island. So I don't know what the jockey was doing. I don't know what Ashinor was doing here. Again, towards the back of the field, fine. But then he moved her out and he wanted her to come down the middle of the track again. Go and watch the race. Go to about 2 furlongs out. Look where the winner is. At the front on the rail. Look where the second is. Behind that horse on the rail. Look where third is. Behind that horse on the rail. So there's a line of 3 of them on the rail. Just like the day before with likes of Lord Ridderford winning down the rail. That came through to finish 1, 2, 3. Because they were in the right place. Jockeys again just didn't think about the race and go, well, I've got to try and get as close to that rail as I can. I've got to try and stay there and go down the inside, is it? Or down that rail anyway. But Oisin decided to come into the middle and sit in the middle and not make any effort to go for a better position. I think the fact that she's ran so disappointingly, they might be nice and give her a nice handicap mark after that. I think she's still the best in that race, to be honest, though. And I would be very disappointed if she doesn't win a decent race soon. So the Platinum Queen won this last year. You know, they're not going to do the same as what they did with the Platinum Queen. She's not going to be running in a Nunthorpe Tropical Island. But she could certainly run in... isn't there a B version of the Nunthorpe? Like the junior version. Just having a quick check. I thought there was a 5 furlong sprint. There's a 6 furlong gimcrack. She could potentially turn up in that. I think she would definitely stay because she's run on soft ground. And I think she's really classy. But I'd like to hope they might drop her into a winnable race next time. Get some confidence back into her. Look after her. Similar to what they've done with Paddington. So they looked after Paddington, Aidan O'Brien. And I think that's why he's been able to win those 3 consecutive Group 1s. How he has. Because they ran this season, they returned in a handicap. And then they went listed. They didn't go, okay, he's really classy, let's run him in a Group 1. And sometimes you run them so quickly in Group 1s that you just empty them too early on in the season. Whereas Paddington has learnt throughout the season, and he's now winning those Group 1s because he's been able to learn throughout the season, which is why I hope they drop Tropical Island back to a winnable race, because I think she is quite smart. Moving on to the 4:45 race, and the horse that's the interesting one here is La Isla Mugere. Is that how you say it? The one who went off favourite. She was very well supported. She went off 7-4 favourite in the end. You can see that she hit 1.33 in the run, so 3-1 on in the run. Because she went forward and she actually quickened away from them, and Hector's probably gone a little bit too soon, hasn't he? On the heavy ground, he's just gone a little bit too soon, and she's just run out of steam late on. Back on soft ground, if they ran it on soft, I think she'd win. I think she is very progressive. These owners, the Valmont owners, keep an eye out for them. They are being very clever with their placing. And interestingly, I'm just having a quick look at La Isla Majeur. So I think they're running their horses over trips that are too short and then going up in trip and getting to the right races. And I've just had a look, and she's actually got an entry for a Group 3 over 1.5 miles. Yet she's not got up to 1.5 miles yet. She's gone up to 1.2 miles. Is that the furthest she's gone? Yeah, 1.2 miles is the furthest she's gone. And yet she's got a Group entry, a Group 3 entry over 1.4 miles. And I think that's what they're doing, these Valmonts. They're being very clever. They're doing very similar, as I mentioned in a previous video, to the likes of what Sir Mark Prescott does, where he runs them over 6, 7, 8, and then goes up to 1.6 miles. These aren't quite doing that. What these owners seem to be doing is going 6, 7, 8, or this went 8, 9, 10, dropping back in trip, 9, 9. I think we'll see La Isla Majeur go 10, 12, 14. Not just jump massively and win one race. They're trying to win races en route to stepping up in trip. And they've got another one later on in this video who is doing very similar. So don't give up on La Isla Majeur. I think she will win next time out under a slightly more conservative ride. I'm actually going to stop the video after this one because we're nearly at 20 minutes. I'm going to try and do a couple of videos then. So the next race that I want to talk about is the 7 furlong handicap, which was won by Ross Collin, which was great to see him bounce back. Obviously, he'd shown plenty the time before when he finished second just a few days earlier. He'd finished second behind On the River. If he'd got a clear run that day, he would have won. He come to Goodwood and was a good winner under Sheen Murphy. With about half a furlong to go, maybe a furlong to go, there was 3 of them that had pulled clear. Ross Collin, Wob 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 and Isla Kai. Now, Wob 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 was given a great ride by Tom Marquand. And obviously, we all know that I'm a big fan of Isla Kai, and this has got to be where they go now. The Ripon rolls on 28th of August. Back to Ripon. I don't think the handicapper will move him. I think he'll leave him on 90. Go back to Ripon. What happened last time they ran at Ripon? Off a mark of 90. They won. They won a 1 mile handicap on soft ground, winning by a length and a quarter at 6-1. I think if they turn back up to Ripon in, what would that be, 22 days' time, they win. I'd be really confident of a huge run from Isla Kai. let's do one more race, and then just because this one we cut out a few. One more race that we're going to talk about, and it is Have Secret, who ran a great race for second on, what was this, the Wednesday? Might have been the Thursday. It was the Thursday even, in the Coral Kinsem handicap. And to be fair to Have Secret, he's been so consistent now. He finished 4th in the London Gold Cup, he finished 4th in the Golden Gates at Royal Ascot, and he finished 2nd in this race. What's he been beaten by? So, the Newbury race is the race that we need to really focus on. This was it here, the London Gold Cup. Have Secret was 4th. Bertinelli won it. Bold Act was 2nd. Exoplanet was 3rd. The favourite was Desert Hero. And the second favourite was Royal Rhyme. Fourth favourite, actually, was Royal Rhyme. Let's have a look at what they've done since. So, Bertinelli went on to finish 3rd in a King George. Bold Act went on to finish 3rd in a Group 3 and has since finished 3rd in a Group 2 over in France. Exoplanet went on to finish 2nd in the Group 3 behind Waipiro. Have Secret has obviously finished 4th at Royal Ascot and 2nd at Goodwood. Desert Hero bounced back after disappointing to win at Royal Ascot. Remember, he went a favourite for the London Gold Cup. Desert Hero won at Royal Ascot and then has won at Goodwood in a group race. And Royal Rhyme, who was only 6-1 for the race at Newbury, bounced back here, winning comfortably at Goodwood. It's a race that's really strong. And I think Have Secret has just been a bit unlucky, to be honest. He's been running in all the right races, and he's been running into horses. He is going to find a race soon. If the handicapper goes, well, Royal Rhyme was very impressive. Let's increase that one and leave the rest as they are. Have Secret could find a race. I mean, Have Secret finished 3/4 of a length in front of Alsakib, but was the only one who was trying to win the race. All the others weren't good enough. But yeah, I'm quite keen on that race, and I still want to keep returning back to this London Gold Cup to see if I can find anything from it. Liber Power's the kind of interesting one because he only went off, we can see here, 15-2. He has run since and he disappointed. He went to Royal Ascot and he went off 100-1 for a race at Royal Ascot. And it was only a handicap. I wonder whether they might drop that back in trip. And I mean, they're saying it was never on terms. He was out the back, never involved. Does he want a massive step up in trip, or does he want dropping in trip? I'm just keeping an eye out for Liber Power, just to see what they do with him. If they drop him back in trip, I'd be interested. If they go up in trip, I'll be interested. Because I'm hoping that they know which way they want to go with Liber Power. If they run again over a mile and 2, a mile and 3, he might not be as interesting there. But I mean, you don't go off 15-2 for a London Gold Cup, and then for some reason he went off 100-1 next time out. Whereas the likes of Bertinelli, who went off 6-1 for the he went off 9-2 for the London Gold Cup, went off 6-1 for the King George. There's definitely something in Liber Power, and he's definitely one to keep an eye on for, especially if they drop him in class and turn up in a much easier race. But yeah, that's a race that we still need to keep coming back to. So that's that race. I think that will do for this video. I'm just having a look what the next one is. Yep, let's wait for the Coral Gold Cup in the Coral Goodwood handicap for the next video. So there's a few in this that I definitely want to keep an eye out for. So a quick recap. Rarsell in a handicap. I'd love to see him next week in the Dubai Duty Free Show World Cup Dash. Soto Sizzler needs to drop £4, but if he does and runs on October the 1st, I know it's a little way to wait, would definitely be a big selection at Epsom. Iberian will, in my opinion, turn out to be the best from the Group 2. Don't give up on Baxi Dar. There is a handicap at York that I think she could win. Funny Story, definitely think she's well handicapped. She just needs a better ride. Could potentially run at Ascot as well. Tropical Island, I think, will turn out to be the best of this lot. I hope she's given an easier race next time to win, to get her back. La Isla Majeur will, I think, step up in trip and still be interesting. She just went too early. Isla Kai, go back to Ripon, win the Ripon Rolls Handicap Stakes. and keep an eye out that London Gold Cup form, Have Secret, Royal Rhyme, what was the other one, Lieber Power, all very interesting going forward.